Massive news for Palantir shareholders. Palantir stock is now going to be included in the S&P 500 index. This was announced 2 days ago on Friday after the bell. I'm going to talk in this video how retail was right about Palantir and all the things retail got right about Palantir over the last multiple years. But before we get into all that, if you're new here, I'm Austin. I'm a co-owner of cloudbusically.com. I'm also a stock market investor, and definitely most importantly for this video, I'm a Palantir shareholder and have been for many, many years. I've made lots of videos here on the channel. After the crazy move it's had over the last multiple years, it's now the top holding in my entire portfolio. And it doesn't look like the gains are going to slow down anytime soon because S&P 500 inclusion is almost always an extremely positive catalyst for a stock price. Two things that are important to remember though. One, being added to the S&P 500 does not change the fundamentals of the company. And I'm an investor that's focused on fundamentals of the company. This doesn't change their revenue. This doesn't change their profit. This doesn't change their margins. It doesn't change the products they have in the market, etc. It's just good for the stock price because there's basically forced buying of Palantir by all the S&P 500 index funds. Other thing that's important to realize is that Palantir is actually not in the S&P 500 yet. So the rebalance gets announced on the first Friday of every third month, and then the rebalance actually happens on the third Friday of that same month. So the third Friday of September, Palantir will actually be added to the index. They're not added just yet. There's a 2-week lag from the time it gets announced to when they're actually added to the index. During that 2-week span, historically, there is a massive run-up, and actually the day that the stock gets added to the index, there's typically a little bit of a pullback, but that pullback is probably going to be much lower than the multi-week run-up that we're going to see leading up to that inclusion. I am not a short-term player in the market. I'm not going to be trading this. I'm not going to be buying it now in hopes that it goes up over the next 2 weeks in order to sell it for a little bit of a profit. That is not my way of doing things. I've been holding Palantir shares for an extremely long time, and I'm just a happy shareholder at this point. There was about an 8% move after hours whenever this news got announced, and on Monday those gains are probably going to continue. I'd say we're about to have a very strong next 2 weeks with Palantir. There's no guarantee, but history suggests that an already hyped stock that then gets the S&P 500 inclusion announcement is going to run up massively. Two examples I'm thinking of off the top of my head is Supermicro and Tesla. Both of them, when they were announced that they were going to be added to the S&P 500, there was a crazy run up for the next 2 weeks, all the way until they actually got included into the index. So we know that retail was right, that Palantir was going to get included into the S&P 500. I made a video a few months back saying here's exactly when Palantir is going to get that inclusion, and my optimistic view was the first Friday of September. That's what we got. Good news. I'm happy that I was right and that we got that inclusion sooner rather than later. I'm not the only one that was saying this by any means. A lot of people were predicting that this would be the quarter, and it did turn out to be true. So retail was right on that. Retail is also right that Palantir's revenue is going to reaccelerate. Many people were saying this as revenue rates were dropping. Revenue growth rates were going from the 30s all the way down to like 13. And then they've climbed and climbed and climbed every single quarter up until now. We're up to 27% year-over-year growth in Q2 of 2024. And I'm excited to see those Q3 numbers if the acceleration can continue all the way up, potentially back into the 30% growth range. And that reacceleration of revenue growth has brought a lot more excitement back into the stock and broadened that shareholder base. And then the last thing that retail was right about that's actually expanded the shareholder base even more than that reaccelerating revenue growth was that Palantir can be a profit generating company and a profit generating beast at that, growing those profits every single quarter massively. And that's what we've seen for many quarters in a row. We've got 7 quarters in a row of positive GAAP EPS and 6 quarters in a row of positive GAAP operating income. And that operating income has grown so ridiculously, which is another thing that retail was right about, that the operating income was going to grow so much that it was going to eclipse their net interest income very quickly, because right when they flipped the profitability corner, if you don't remember this, a lot of people, a lot of analysts, a lot of investors, even some retail folks, and just a lot of Palantir haters in general said, well, they're only profitable because of interest income, because they're putting a lot of their uninvested cash into T-bills, and those T-bills are paying them interest. That was a valid complaint, but those of us who are long-term focused saw, okay, operating income is next to come. And it literally came the next quarter. And it only took 2 quarters for the operating income to eclipse the interest income. And the operating income now is well past the interest income. And those operating income growth rates have been so ridiculous with Palantir. And that's just another thing that retail was right about. I love to see a great retail win in the market. Tesla was a big retail win in the market. Palantir is now a big retail win in the market. There were so many retail investors like myself, like you maybe out there, who were buying Palantir in the $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 range. And now we're up crazy, ridiculous percentages, 100, 200+% on the stock. And it's not slowing down anytime soon now that we've got that S&P 500 inclusion. And the fundamentals are literally as strong as they've ever been for Palantir. The path forward is even more growth. The path forward is even more respect from the market. And the path forward is a broader, even wider shareholder base for Palantir as they become more and more respected by the market. I'm excited for the short term with Palantir the next few months because there's a lot of excitement around the stock right now, but I'm way more excited about the next few years with Palantir because, like I said, the fundamentals are in the best spot they've ever been and they're not showing any signs of slowing down. In fact, they're actually accelerating. It's been an amazing ride with Palantir stock so far. I want to know if you're a fellow shareholder out there, and if you're comfortable sharing it, let us know what your average cost per share is on Palantir. $20 range, $15 range, $10 range. I'm curious to hear what your cost basis is on Palantir. I appreciate you being here in a major way. Congrats to all fellow Palantir shareholders out there. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have an amazing day.